The modern-day spiritual community has made spirituality seem like something that you add to your pre-existent identity to become a spiritual version of yourself. It seems as though there's an initiation into the spiritual realm by doing certain spiritual things, buying spiritual tools, attending spiritual workshops, going down this route of spirituality which has been established by pre-existing leaders in the game to bring you towards a certain version of spirituality that is supposed to help you with enlightenment and with finding your true self. But what really is this spirituality that is so promoted in today's world? What is this new age version of spirituality, and is it even what you need to experience the more spiritual version of who you are? Some people associate spirituality with buying crystals, with using sage or aromatherapy, with going to new age events like Burning Man, or going to ayahuasca retreats and doing certain spiritual practices like meditating or doing some kinds of vipassana retreats or yoga in order to achieve a certain spiritual edge of your experience. However, there is no one-size-fits-all formula for spirituality. And this is the most important thing that I want to stress in today's video. Spirituality is not an approach to embodying a certain kind of persona, a certain kind of personality. Because spirituality is not about becoming any version of yourself that is inauthentic to who you are. Which also means that there is no one route to achieve more spirituality in your experience. The reason why all of these programs and approaches and protocols have been so promoted is because they drive a certain community-centric model of spirituality, which is very popular in today's world. A lot of people find spirituality because they feel alone. Maybe they have been experiencing a spiritual awakening and want a sense of community. So they find themselves in places with lots of other people going through the same thing, and so certain spiritual activities, like breath work, meditation, yoga, fasting, all kinds of things like that can bring people together in order to promote a certain spiritual community-centric feel that brings a sense of belonging and oneness. However, even these kinds of group experiences are not for everyone. Some people find spirituality through the work of just going within, doing their own kind of inner retreat, which does not involve any kinds of popularized formulas or strategic ways of meditating, doing breathwork, yoga, or excluding yourself from day-to-day activities in order to feel like you are a more spiritual being. Spirituality is all about integration. And if we come to visualize spirituality as the merger between the physical and the metaphysical worlds, we can come to see that spirituality is all about balance. It's all about moderation, which means it's not about creating a new kind of identity for yourself at all, but rather about deprogramming yourself to the extent that you become the primordial spirit behind your experience of life. I often get judgments even about my appearance, and questions about, is it spiritual to use makeup if you're a woman, to dress nicely, to enjoy abundant experiences, to go out and to do things which seem to be very human and connected to the 3D world. And that's where I think we need to get into the discussion of what spirituality really means in the third dimensional capacity. Because spirituality cannot be introduced to the 3D world without finding a way to include yourself in the 3D world, and that is exactly what a lot of spiritualists are vehemently against. Many people who get into spirituality have a desire to withdraw from the earthly experience altogether. They find themselves wanting to be spiritual because they have gone through challenges in life that left them feeling alone, disappointed, frustrated with the matrix and with life within it. Many people who discover spirituality want an escape from the life that they have been living at present. And so they seek solutions through the running away from themselves and from the life that they have been living in the past, from their traditional day job, from their family, friends, from relationships, from all kinds of things and material attachments, because they think that to be spiritually liberated is to completely cut the cords from their prior existence. However, this couldn't be farther from the truth. To be spiritual does not mean to be disconnected, to be detached, to not have a sense of belonging, or to have to completely wipe the slate on your previous life. Sometimes when people go through spiritual awakenings, that can promote the desire to completely change your life, to harmoniously let go of certain attachments that do not serve you, which can include jobs, relationships, different kinds of material things. However, the desire to rid yourself of anything 3D in nature does not have to be the way to approach spirituality. Spiritual people can still have money, look good, care about themselves, and care about what they have in their life, and live a very normal, abundant, beautiful human existence. Because what spirituality comes down to is how balanced you are at your core and where your values lie. When it comes to the analysis of where spirituality is taking you, it's important to realize, why do you desire spirituality in your life? What is it that you want spirituality to bring you? And how are you going to use spirituality to become a better human being? Because ultimately, that's what all of this is about. Some spiritual people don the spiritual mask, which I like to call the spiritual ego, which is just a new kind of a persona using the glamorized form of spirituality to promote enlightenment, being better than other people, and using that kind of superiority mentality to gain attention as a spiritual guru or leader. This kind of spiritual fanatism is not something that is actually spiritual in nature, because whatever promotes grandiosity, being above other people, or using spirituality to flaunt that you are somehow better because of your spiritual nature, just does the opposite in your inner world. By still needing the spiritual mask or having to use spirituality to bolster yourself as somebody above others is just indicative that you don't feel whole within. And so people that need spirituality to maintain this kind of facade are truly experiencing the unintegrated state of being. It's easy to see past this because such people usually talk a good talk but require devotion, and this is why we see a lot of cults in the spiritual world. There are a lot of people who want to have devout followers, do their thing, and follow specific strategies, tactics, protocols in order to achieve a certain degree of spirituality tied to that leader. However, all that is indicative of is the same kind of cult mentality. It's all about followership. It's all about devotion, which means it's all about ego, and that is not about soul, which means that is not what spirituality is about at all. I view spirituality as the path back home, the path back to the soul, which means it is really the merger with the concept of unity consciousness. Every person has to find their own way back home to the essential truth of who they are, and the essential truth of oneness. And there's no one way to do that. For some people, this can involve meditating, doing these kinds of retreats, going away and just being in stillness or in nature for an extended period of time, or doing a darkness retreat, to really listen to your inner world and to come out of a state of needing to egoically identify with the things around you in order to understand who you are. For other people, however, it might mean choosing to find more connection in the world, choosing to overcome hermit mode, which is a very often seen archetype among very spiritual souls. Very often, empathetic, deep, loving, and conscious souls are afraid of embracing their spiritual selves. So for many, the journey into a more spiritually embodied experience is to simply come out of that shell and to start living in a free, fully embodied, open, and authentic way. For other people, the path might involve more inner healing, more experiences that are guided by the heart and by the intuition, which do not involve the kinds of spiritual group experiences that others really enjoy. And in this way, you learn to find spirituality just by becoming more connected to your inner world in a way that you haven't been feeling in the past. Ultimately, spirituality is a way of being. It's a way of life, which means it doesn't have to be a separate aspect of your existence from your job, from your routine, from your relationship. Every single aspect of your life can be seen as a playing ground to experience your spiritual self. Because ultimately it comes down to how spiritual you want to be with and within yourself. How closely connected do you want to be with your own soul? How closely associated do you want to be with Source? If you are consciousness, then the reason why you're experiencing this human journey is to experience how fully balanced and integrated you can be with it. Which means the spiritual awakening process is often just a series of realizations that are accompanied by a desire to know more and to understand more about who you are and why you are here. Oftentimes, spiritual awakening can feel like an implosive journey of having a lot of realizations, synchronicities, and even cathartic life events that can feel kind of unpleasant come up because that is what you might need in order to experience this dawning of realization about the truth of your spirit. Once you can connect with your spirit, once you can perceive everything in terms of energy, meaning, and consciousness, all things start to make more sense. And you might not feel the need to do all these spiritual things which are promoted, like buying more crystals or reading more self-help books or going to spiritual experiences, because you will start to feel at that point that life is really the art of embracing spirituality in a myriad of ways. You can experience spirituality by being more connected to the foods you eat, to the things you do, to how you move your body, to how you go out and embrace other people in a loving way, and use every experience as a way of enhancing your spiritual connection to all of life by choosing to embody more love, more grace, more integrity, more truth, authenticity, kindness, patience, tolerance, and forgiveness. These are all beautiful qualities which we tend to forget because we think that there needs to be a quest toward enlightenment or toward spirituality. However, the real test is in how deeply are you going to embody the values of spirituality that make you a conscious human being. You can play the spiritual game as much as you want superficially to make you feel spiritual, to make you feel healed, by going to all these kinds of events and experiences to make you feel like you have gotten it. But the test of if you've gotten it is how happy you really are and how you make others feel around you. Your legacy is the test of your spirituality, your achievements, your accomplishments, and what good you do in the world. When you can look at your life as an expression of your spirituality and how that allows you to be the best version of yourself you can ultimately start to live in a way that is spiritually liberating and connected to the source of your bliss. When you can find a way to enlighten yourself and to be happy by also making other people happy, you can find that life becomes so much more beautiful. And it doesn't always involve what other people say spirituality is about. When you can release even the conditioning surrounding the spiritual way to be, the spiritual way to eat, the spiritual way to dress, the spiritual way to go out and to express yourself, then you can truly start to tap into the core of your experience and embody the truth about who you are. I often say this word truth, and a lot of people wonder, what does this mean? What kind of truth am I talking about? Because truth is purely subjective in nature. Everybody has their own truth. And that is exactly the point of spirituality. Spirituality is about making you think about the deeper nature of truth in our reality, to realize that everybody has their own truth, which means that if you try to learn spirituality from one person, they're going to give you one definition. Meanwhile, the next leader is going to give you another definition. The truth for you is going to be something purely individual based on your own soul's experiences, the lessons you've been programmed to learn here, and the things that you are destined to be experiencing. To be spiritual is to embrace it all. It's to love it all, as difficult as that may be at times. And it's to step into the fullest acceptance of who you are and what you're meant to be doing here. If you can do that, then a lot of things are going to start to flow much more harmoniously in your experience. And you'll start to see that life really is a canvas for spirituality when you choose to flow, when you choose to surrender the guards of your ego in order to really become connected with the more fluid version of your identity. There is an identity that exists outside of the personality which you're used to bearing on a daily basis. And think about what that identity is governed by. There is a soul that exists outside of your human meat suit. There is an essence which is existent separate of your mind and its perceptions. And when you can connect to that part of you which is very subtle but very beautiful in nature, you can start to perceive life in a very different way, in a more colorful way, in a way that is indicative of a higher consciousness which is guiding you from a higher level. And when you can come to embody that dimension of truth, you will experience spirituality in its most organic form that is driven by your own soul and led by your own heart, which is the only guidance that you need to figure out what is the most spiritual way for you to live in this experience.